Liam Newitt presents The Curse of the Devious Gobbler's Cursed Crystals. Fire spreads far and wide, spreading so far it could cause major damage. The whimsical sounds of birds screeching for help lingers in the woods. Silence doesn't quite fill it. It tingles the neck of humans surrounding the forest, thinking carefully of what could happen, where things could go, and how things could take. But suddenly the flames ended, helicopters flying out, extinguishing the fires that spread too far. They were all gone, left to vanish, disappear, and never return again. The world seemed very crumbled, destroyed by evil feelings within, some that would never change the world the way it lived, some that may shape the hearts of humans into hatred. It seemed too disembodied for humans to think this way. Once the fire had gone, questioning everything they had just experienced. It felt like just a dream. Nightmares too far and too wide to leave. Nowhere else to go, just lingering darkness, gone forever in their mind, left to be betrayed by others as just an evil, cursed nightmare. Not quite the really happy, stupidly dumb dreams that humans would go through. It was astonishing. For one strange creature that lived beneath a well, the Devious Gobbler. He seemed like the fire was totally just a success, but instead it was a disaster waiting to happen, and decided to give way from these evil personas he gained whilst trying to beat the fire. It was all gone, left alone, never to return ever again. Everything went silent. The gobbler was resting. Things remained silent for quite some time. Only thoughts could linger on in mind, for where things would be shaped, for the next tricks that the gobbler would do to try gain revenge on those that eliminated his big flames, tearing his life apart, turning him into a sad person. Sadness was lingering within the gobbler, but rest was the best way he could change things for now. So he was sleeping. The restless persona stayed still, resting for months on end, until one day he woke up with a genius plan that could shape the world differently than he had ever thought he would do before. A huge change. A huge, distant journey that he must take to proceed through his genius idea, to try and gain revenge. But steps must be taken first, before his journey was leading forward, changing things further, whispering. The quiet journey lingers in. His heart turned cold, his blood clotting slowly, before the warmth inside his heart eased things off, turning his blood to complete liquid. It seemed like he knew just what he would do. His journey must proceed. Luckily for him, another room within his home, locked just like the fire room, was never really opened before. In fact, it was cursed to remain closed forever. But the deed must be done, and the journey lingered on. The steps must be taken. The door must be unlocked. Heading to the next place, the keys were grabbed by those deep, dark green hands. The door was unlocked with a really loud click, before silence lingered in, keeping things distant. A silence just a brief moment for the gobbler to take his next deep breath. Just to wait. The door slowly swung open, creaking as it did. The creak was so loud, almost like a loud squeal of an animal in deep danger. The squealing was far too loud, far too big, far too scary. Worse than any other feeling that would be lingering inside things. It was time. The place was finally revealed. While the door opened, a loud humming spread out. The humming seemed musical. So amusing, a brilliant sound. It seemed almost melodic for some people to hear. Inside the room laid multiple crystals, bright and shiny, like they had never been touched before. The room just never entered. It seemed strange for the crystals. Perhaps they should have been very dusty, very filthy, as if they had never been touched before. But instead it seemed very shiny, like they had been polished multiple times. They were never untouched. Never untouched. The mind grilled in, keeping it closed. A soft, static sound still came from them as the humming continued, almost in a musical form. It felt dreamlike, a perfect place for people to stay, people to dream, people to sound the feeling. But the deed was still in mind. The gobbler attempted to make his very next move. My next move is incoming. Be prepared, humans. For this time things will be so much different. More tempting for me. I guess they're wondering right now just what I have planned. They don't know anything. These crystals will make things just the perfect pick. Just the perfect dream for them. The sound of this humming could make them fall asleep. And while they're sleeping, I could cause a little bit of mayhem. That sounds like just the plan. But it's very late at night right now, so I must get some sleep before I do this amazing work. I better get a wiggle on before the sun starts to rise. Silence moves on, lingers in. Only the sound of owls and crickets making noise on the outside, just seeping in through some of the holes in the walls of the gobbler's home. It seemed more like a song to him. The sound of all the nature within just helped him wander off to his sleep, usually followed by pleasant dreams, ones that were so interestingly happy, pleasant dreaming, usually lingering within the gobbler's mind. But not this time. Instead, this night it seemed more like a nightmare, with signs of humans trying to just claim their own danger, holding swords in hands, trying to set the gobbler to flames and hit him multiple times just so he could end up dead. All with the eyes that he would first end up getting up to flee home and grab the crystals, as if he was trying to just distract these humans from trying to gain an attack, just so he could hide away for some more time, ready to prepare himself for the next massive fight that he could possibly end up turning to in the near future. Dreams finally stopped. Silence continued on. The gobbler in deep sleep. The shine of the moon just seeping through some of the cracked walls, giving it some form of night light. Just that small, smooth glow, nothing too bright to blind him. Such a peaceful sleep for the rest of the night, until the sun rose. The very second of the awakening, it was time to make the move. Grab whatever needed to be grabbed, ready for the next waves to roll. He thought deeply about his move throughout the morning, whilst doing the natural morning routines, thinking carefully about his next steps and the effects they could potentially have on the others outside. He thought far and wide before thinking to go ahead with the idea of using the crystals as some form of evil deed. It was just a questionable thing, a strange master mind. His thinking almost seemed like a daydream, but not too close, nor too far away. Almost like a scratched scar, a dreaded pick of paint just flooded over the walls. The paint turns to darkness. Soft lights slowly fade in from a distance, almost appearing as if they were twinkling stars in a sky in the middle of the night, shining very lightly. The feel of a fresh breeze just brushing the skin of the gobbler's arms as he slowly started to make a move. It seemed like a very soft touch, one that was completely different to any other. A strange one, in fact. One that felt different than any other feeling. It was lost. A temptation. A switch from different things. The lights grew closer and closer, brightening as they did. The brightness eventually took over him, transported him into reality. Before then, he opened his eyes, after his long, tame thinking. His movement needed to be made, and fast. Time was running out. The movement needed to be made immediately. There was nothing left. Nothing but a huge rush. A thought like any other would never win like this. The journey must be ready. He must be ready to make that move. Make the changes. Make the difference. Change things for things to go really cold. For the lights to stop lingering. Movements needed to be made. Growing faster. Breathing deeply. It was time to make the move. Step by step, he slowly headed into the room filled with the crystals, grabbing an axe with it, cutting pieces of the crystals off and placing them into a large basket, before entering into the fire room, placing them in the pot, casting a spell. The spell took some time to create, before soon it would be ready to start gaining a throw. One that could make the village question just what would be happening inside this strange, big forest. They didn't know just yet what would happen and where it would take them. Questions swirl in many brains. Thoughts so empty, almost like they were stirring a pot of a drink, drinking up the textures of some elemental planning. This village was like no other, a quiet place, a lost one. Its deeds filled to the brim with great, good feelings. One so strong and far led him to the strongness, led him to the dark, a feeling like no other. It swung around minds of many villagers just what would happen now. The spell was cast, ready and raring to go for the daylight, as the night sky slowly rolled in. Stars started to twinkle slowly into the night sky. The chirping birds quietened down, leading to nothing but endless silence. It was cast like a dream, a long-lost one that just left things behind, one that made bodies feel cold. A cold night, almost as if it was winter. But for one person, they couldn't sleep. Some strange noises were starting to rumble within his home. He started to question just what it was, and where things had come from. The person ignored the loud noises for the night, until the wake of the morning, before telling his parents and muttering to himself,
I heard some weird noises last night. It seemed like it was coming from the forest. Some form of humming. I don't know what it was. But to be fair, I shouldn't even be focusing on the forest. Instead, I should be studying. Come on, Candle. Focus on your studies. You have an exam soon. But I can't. These annoying noises just keep me awake in the middle of the night. I need some rest.
Though rest was a large request, it didn't come. Not for a while. As the gobbler stepped forward into his mind, prepare himself for the next move. It was time. The revenge must arrive. The revenge must seek through the eyes of other people. Revenge time was close, was very near, and before long, the gobbler would run out of the door. The plan in mind was for him to set the village into total distraction. The loud noise of the humming would be just one way to cause these problems. The humming would turn things into deep sleep. People, deep sleep. But deep sleep would leave them distracted, so that one special piece of the crystals would be placed within the fountain. Before long, the crystal will eventually explode, causing some major damage. The gobbler before the explosion must flee back home. But would it be successful? That was his huge question. But movements must be made first, before heading any further into these mindsets. Any further it may go. Well, the steps were close. It's time for him to go. The night rest was strong for him. It almost felt like a dream that he was about to just cause some utter mayhem. Not long after the burning flames prior to this would happen. Those flames that just had it poured around the home. The spreading fires. The shrieks and squeals of humans nearby trying to escape the burning flames. It was all a form of happiness. The flames growling evilly. The loud clicks of the branches snapping as the fire burned them down. It felt like relief to the gobbler. It felt like the flames were supposed to be there, like they weren't supposed to spread too far and too wide. It was all just an elaborate dream for him, or so it felt. His passionate touch just caused the feeling of those flames to feel good in his body. His stomach rumbling full of passion, almost like a thunderstorm was just lodged within the gobbler's body, preparing himself for the next one. A long journey must be made, but that feeling, that visual feeling of the fire prior to this, that spreading flame, the nice crispy sound of the flames bursting out. It made him confident that the next move was just the right way to go. It was almost time to head off. He was almost ready. Ready to make a move. Ready to take his next step. It was time. Putting on his clothes and preparing himself to get out. It was all set, ready to roll. With the basket of crystals in hand, he headed out of his home, secretly sneaking towards the village. It was quite some time away, quite a far walk, but it was so scenic and so refreshing to the mind of the body of the gobbler as he headed forwards. It was time to make his march, the steps coming closer. It took him a few miles to reach the village, but the deed was ready to be done. Luckily, he timed it perfectly, spending most of the daytime finishing off the spell in preparation just for this very moment to occur. Once the darkness had sneaked in, as nighttime headed towards them, it was just the perfect mood, just the perfect timing to head to the right places, movements set to be made. It was definitely this moment worth waiting for. The gobbler sneaked into many of the houses within the village, sneaking in pieces of the crystals that would cause them to enter the deep sleep. It wasn't quite bedtime just yet for the villagers, only about 6 in the evening. Yet it was just the winter time, and of course things are much darker over the winter, darkness rolling in quite quicker. The quick feeling of that dark just made things feel perfect. Sneaking in was the best way to distract them. After all, the families within the village were just having their great evening meals. That just felt perfect. A time to just sneak in and roll around those said crystals, placing them one by one, eventually leading all the villagers into constant darkness. They sleep. They prepare themselves. Doors bang open and closed in some places as the gobbler prepares themselves. But eventually all the villagers fell to the sleep, with only one piece of crystal left within the box. The basket, well, was eventually empty. The largest crystal that remained was placed into the fountain in the center of the village. This is it. This is my chance to win. My chance to make my next move. Here I come. I finally can get my vengeance on everyone else that tried to ruin my life. Tried to get me to where I was prior. It won't happen this time. I know it won't. Oh, the explosion's close. I better make my move back home before the explosion. I better run. And now is the time to make that run. I better go. Go, go, go. Make my move. It's time. Home I go. I'll be able to watch as this place explodes from that crystal. The run home was quick. He was able to teleport home rather than run, although it felt like a run. Safely back into the home, he entered into his bedroom, grabbing his laptop just to watch all CCTV cameras within the village preparing themselves for the explosion. It seemed like a clock was ticking. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It was a very short wait. The ticking stopped. bursting into complete silence once again. Before long, the rumble of the explosion was ready. The rumble felt extremely violent. Before long, the explosion would happen. Just as I imagined it to go. It feels just like a really good thing. My mind has felt good. I was thinking it would be successful, and it was. Kaboom goes the village. It just feels perfect. Just right for me. Such a brilliant feeling within my heart. Just brilliant. Now, this explosion shouldn't have killed any of the villagers. It wasn't that powerful. I cast a spell to make sure that all of the villagers were not hurt during this explosion, just for the sake of their reaction. I love to see the shock on their face as they step outside during the morning. But first, it's time to rest, close my eyes and sleep. Then I will be able to see just what happens as soon as the sun starts to rise. The sound of the wind blows. It seemed so dreamlike. But eventually, they knew just what time it was. The gobbler awakening. Just in time, he said. Just in time, I see. It's daylight, and the villagers should be out in just any moment. It's time to watch, but first I must quickly make some breakfast. I could eat my food while I watch. The gobbler made his breakfast, whilst the radio quietly played in the background. It was a very long cook. Just that sound of the radio just playing in the distance made him feel happy. Plates clinking as he prepared himself for his major breakfast, ready to watch the next move to happen within the village. It continued on. The cooking. A large breakfast just so he wasn't ready to move. Along with that, making a nice warm drink just to make himself feel much better. Almost feeling like he would give himself a burn of passion. It was time to make that move now. Everything was close. But the radio just still lingered in. It was time to make that move. It felt like it was all on his own. It just felt perfect, just for him. That cooking was done, and he was ready to make his watchful eye focus on the village. With the meal finally complete, he was ready to sit and watch. His watchful eyes staring carefully at his screen on the laptop, as he waited for the first villager to make their very step outside. It wasn't very long. Just 2 bites of toast. Then the next villager would step out. Crows squawking in the distance just made the atmosphere feel much crazier on top of it.
Before long, the large screams rumbled in from all of the villagers. What happened to this place? It's all ruined. All this rubble. What happened here? I can't remember anything happening last night. I mean, it fell a little something. Like a little rumble. But, like, it's normal. I mean, wherever we are, it's likely that we can get earthquakes. It almost felt like it was one of those. Pretty high one, though. Must have been so high that it caused a lot of damage. Although it seems like something exploded, like a bomb or something. So it couldn't have been an earthquake. What happened? Who did this? I know who must have done this. The guy. The same guy that caused the fire in the forest. That green demon. Wherever he's hiding now. We must pay our vengeance on him and make our next move. They must pay for what they have just done to our beautiful village. It's time to kill him. It's time to make a move. It's time to make a rule. It's time to make that step ahead. Now let's get that subtle demon and teach him his very lessons. See how he likes it if we damage his own feelings, as well as his own home. Maybe we could plant a bomb inside his house. Maybe then it would feel so much better for us. Maybe, just maybe, that's what we need to do. Only time may tell. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to get ready. It's time to head on with a war from an evil green demon that lives within that stupid realm. That well within the forest. It's hard to think just what we can do. But only time can tell just what movements we must make. Our very steps will reveal that next time. I know just what we can do. It's time to kill that demonic gobbler. Oh no. No. Bad idea. The gobbler said to himself, screaming in his own fears. Waiting. Searching for the next move was just not the right time. This time he must hide. But where? Where would he hide? What would happen? Where should he go? What could happen? The question lingering in his mind forever, repeating itself over and over again. Just what was his next move to make sure that he was safe? Where would things go next? How would it go? Where would it go? The clocks are ticking in my brain. I can't focus. Oh, this was just a really good plan. A plan to destroy that village, but now it's gone unsuccessfully. They want to try and get my body, turn it out, turn me into multiple pieces like a jigsaw. No, I must hide now. Yes, I must definitely hide. I don't want anyone to make sure they know what steps I'm taking. Well, I better make that move now before it's too late. They're going to kill me. Not on my watch, they're not. Not if I'm hidden far away. Just the perfect place to hide will just be beautiful. But where would I hide? Where would I go? That's one thing I must think about before I make the next move. But why. Why would they want to hurt me? It was just a plan. Maybe it was just a little bit too strong. Bit too damage shouldn't have hurt, surely. It's too late now. I've done what was done. I've done my deeds, and I've done my duty. And now, I need to make sure to find the best way for them to pay for what they have done, or for what they will do. Try to murder me. Who do they think they are? What do they think they are doing? No time for questions. No time. Just no time at all. Yes, there's definitely no time for questions. The only question I can think about right now is just where should I hide? Just where will I go? I can't make a move. Don't know where I'm going. One step to the snow, then I'm out for the poison. Capture the others to try to find the way to me, to come and find where I'm hiding. If I go out, I have to be more secretive instead of making a sign that I'm here. So now I need to know, where will I hide? Where will I go? I don't know. I don't know. If I'm all alone, I question where I'd go. Where should I go? Where should I hide? Inside of my mind, I got nowhere, nowhere, nowhere to hide. Not for tonight. The sun has not risen yet, so I must sleep tight before the move tomorrow. Nighttime rolls in, and sleep must be secured tightly. The hours slowly curdling in, sitting safely in bed, waiting, before eyes close and sleep comes flying in. He was just stuck there, forever sleeping away. His rest was endless, almost as if the night just seemed to linger on for far too long. But daytime did eventually arrive. The goblin making his move to find somewhere to hide for the next day, still thinking just carefully where he would go. There's just one place I can think of that could keep me hidden in the dark for quite some time. I've heard there are some caves not too far away from home. Perhaps I should teleport there to the entrance of these caves and hide there temporarily,
just so I can't be found by those rancid humans. Yes, yes, good idea. They won't ever find me hiding there, inside those dark, crooked caves. Just the best move, I think. It's time. The movements have been made for me to find my way to hide. And in just a matter of time as well, to make my very amazing movement. It's so good, so loving. It seems like it screams out my name, waiting in pride. It holds me still. But now, I have found just the place where I can stay for the next few days. At least until that rancid, humanized thing goes. The trail to try and murder me, that is. I don't want to be killed. I deserve to live. I'm not that evil. I wasn't supposed to hurt the village that much. I guess I just didn't know how powerful those crystals were. Those sweet, humming crystals. The ones that seemed so musical. The ones with the humming being in sync almost with whimsical birds chirping during the days. But I guess everything just went far too wrong for me. And now I must hide. I better get my movement going quick. I don't want to be here forever, waiting, losing in my mind. I don't know where I would be. It's time to make my move and hide in those crooked caves, just so I can wait. Wait for the next move to disappear. And then, as soon as I get into the cave, I could think of just the right moment to eventually find my next rage. To go ahead and get my revenge on them. Perhaps they wouldn't expect it this time. Perhaps I should be a little bit more secretive when it comes to the next steps of trying to find my way to get some form of vengeance on those rancid humans. But first I must head out and travel towards the caves so I can hide there. Clothing prepared, there seems to be a clear path near sides of house. The well. A soft patch of green grass, not touched by the snow, was seen. The snow must have not hit this very area, as of yet. Although the ground was still frozen. The gobbler made his move, started heading towards these caves. His movements getting closer and closer. The sound of the leaves and twigs of trees snapping, crunching as he made his moves. The birds singing their amazing song as he ventured down towards those caves' entrances. It didn't take very long before he arrived. The caves right in front of his very face. They were just standing there. It seemed like the caves were crawling in to his mind, calling out his name to try suck him into them.
He stood still for a brief moment, taking a deep breath before entering the cave. As soon as he entered the cave, it was entrances. There was some calls that drug him further. Not quite stepped in yet to the caves. We're just waiting at the cave's edge. The cave's arch, near the entrance, hadn't quite went over the line to step onto the cobbly stones within the entranceway. It took some time. It took a long wait, but eventually he made his move, placing both steps of feet, placing them gently, tapping onto the bright cold stones near the entrance of the cave, before standing still and taking a deep breath once again, waiting, stuck there in silence. But what would he do? A big clips of violence, flashbacks to previous occasions mixed into his mind. Hence the waiting. He sat by the entrance for a moment, breathing heavily, as if he was running away from something. Before long, he fainted and entered a deep sleep.